It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. Also want to give a shout out to our other sponsors, MichiganMushrooms.net, PacificWestBamboo.com, New World Mexican Women, and also to StrawmanMusic.com, and Miguel La Sala, author of The Rodeo of Doom. Now, if this is the first time you're listening to our show, please take a moment, check out OppermanReport.com. And you can go there and check out our members section, where we have all kind of exclusive content. There's shows on there that you won't hear on Friday nights or Saturday afternoons. You have to become a member, and you can have access to all those shows. About 30, 40 shows in there right now, and we add new ones each week. We're here today with Christopher Brennan from New York City. And he's the author of Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. Not deconstruction, destruction. And Christopher's going to be telling us about how our perception of the Arab Spring is not quite what we thought it was. And there's a little bit more nefarious activity from our own government there to destabilize Egypt and, I guess, take advantage of the situation and cause chaos over in the Middle East. Christopher, are you there? Hey, Chris, you there? Oh, I might have you on mute, do I? Let me check real fast. I think I do. No, I don't. Hey, Chris, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Okay, great. We have with us Christopher Brennan, author of Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. Okay, Chris, so give us an idea. Who is Christopher Brennan?
Well, I'm an independent political analyst based here in New York City, here in Harlem, uptown New York City. And I basically take a look at American politics and geopolitics and foreign policy, and I critique it from, sort of an incisive lens, and I try to discover the truth of the matter and discover, what's going on in the world.
Okay. And what is your background? Where'd you go to school?
Okay, I graduated magna cum laude and Phi Alpha Theta from Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry. My degree is in history.
Okay, very good. And give me an idea. How old are you?
I'm actually 26. I'm about to turn 27, though, so...
Okay, God bless you, man. And you're living in New York City. You were telling me off the air you come from Newburgh, New York. And you're down there at the 125th Library in Harlem over there.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now, so now give us an idea. First of all, what tipped you off that there was something suspicious about the official story of the Arab Spring?
All right, what tipped me off was always when you're dealing with mainstream media, you always have to take a critical lens. You always have to be incisive because they're not going to give you the entire truth of the matter. Everybody has their own ideology, their own interests, no matter what outlet you're looking at. Everyone has their own agenda. So what tipped me off was the fact that you're looking at a destabilization of Middle Eastern countries, and you also look at the fact of the general geopolitical overall framework which is going on at the time, and you look at the history of past destabilizations, coup d'etats, which have happened ad nauseum. We've intervened over dozens of countries, and it had all the earmarks of all these previous iterations of destabilization. So that's what tipped me off about the specious, let's say, nature of the official narrative going on there.
I remember watching this on the news, and I wasn't, that into it. But I was kind of saying, oh, boy, yeah, look at this. This is a good thing. You know, the people are rising up. And I like to rise up. You know, I'm against the government in general, you know, and I'm for the people. And I was thinking, boy, this is – and they were talking about how, these are students, and they're organizing through Twitter and social media, and it's an organic uprising. So all of that is an illusion?
Yes, exactly, and in fact that's the sort of brilliance of it. Is that what I do in my first chapter is I sort of juxtapose the tactics of the previous Bush administration with that of the Obama administration. Now, when it comes to the Bush administration, it was blunt, it was bellicose, it was this sort of might makes right tactics of unilateralism. And you contrast that with the Obama administration, and their approach is that of being more indirect, that of relying on soft power, the power of attraction, the power of allies, and that of mobilizing civilian-based power. So everything is indirect. So if you have these sort of liberal platitudes of democracy, liberty, freedom, human rights, right, you can blithely proclaim this, and meanwhile, at the same time, you're behind the scenes facilitating and fostering the entire process. So, in other words, the earmarks of U.S. Policy is not immediately visible. So that's the beauty of it, and that's why it was hard to discern when it first came about. But now we can sit back, and we're seeing more and more, as most people understand now, that as we have reached the 5th anniversary, in fact, of the so-called Arab Spring, that is completely discredited at this point. I quote Patrick Cockburn recently, says that it's brought about nothing but calamity. There's an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, says that, previously, right, the avatar of the Middle East was, as you said, right, these liberal, idealistic, romantic students. Now, what is it? It's the ISIS benighted terrorists. So now we've had this discrediting of the Arab Spring, and now, of course, it's a very timely period to begin examining it more critically than we have before.
Let me ask you a question before we get into more details on what's going on over there. How has your book been received? Are you getting any blowback from people who want to continue this official narrative? Well,
the thing is, I've sort of been submitting it here and there to. The official release date is December 12th. I've been sending out copies to various people, but most of these so far have been of the sort of political orientation, which might be more amenable to it. So I haven't really gotten to sort of submitting it to the more mainstream, but I have submitted to a few professors. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback for the most part. And in fact, I submitted to a lot of my previous professors at my college. Right, I was in the Model United Nations team. Right, my whole entire team, everything has been support and positive feedback.
Oh, very cool. Now, so give us an outline. How did they pull this off?
Okay, the way it works was that basically what happened was you have this sort of template, right, which the U.S. uses for destabilization under this sort of civilian-based power tactic. So what you have to do first and foremost, or what I do, is I look at I juxtapose the Arab Spring to something called the color revolutions. And what the color revolutions were they were a series of so-called revolutions which attempted to overturn, supplant, successfully and unsuccessfully in some cases, the governments of the former Soviet sphere, to bring them into the orbit of the U.S. So what they do is they mobilize these idealistic youth, as we said, right, students, and then what you do is you also mobilize at the same time various other discontents or malcontents, because these are, again, authoritarian regimes, And of course, you have the situation which is compounded by a drastic declining world economic situation, which happened in around 2008, and then also again around the time of the Arab Spring. So we have a cadre of these sort of idealistic students. And what they do is they've been trained in these methods of civilian-based power, these methods of so-called revolution, and that's how it works. So what I do, I use Egypt as a case study. And in Egypt, what you had a group called April 6th. You have April 6th and the Kafaya movements. Now, here the earmarks are very striking because you have not only did they meet with, and I should of course mention that they were the ones who spearheaded the protest. They were the ones who got everybody out into the streets. So here you have April 6th, and the earmarks here are striking, as I said, because not only did they meet in Washington with certain officials, they went to a State Department conference, right, the Alliance for Youth Movements, but also they were actually trained by Otpor, the Otpor movement of Serbia, which overturned Slobodan Milosevic of Serbia. And what they did there was they took the fact that these are authoritarian regimes, they're discredited, they're authoritarian, and they mobilized the various sectors of Egyptian society out into the streets to help stabilize it, right? And not only that, but then you have the sort of mainstream media who's picking up on it, right? And they look at it and they present it as this auspicious forthcoming transition of the Arab world and Egypt into democracy, human rights, and all these various platitudes. So that's how it works on the civilian-based power side. And then on the other hand, you have the United States and President Obama himself, who's the leader of the world's preeminent power, go forth and actually demand that the leader of another country step down. So those are sort of the tactics that are employed to bring about these changes.
Now, wait a second. You're saying that this group, April 6th, they actually came to the United States before the Arab Spring, and they received training here before all this started?
No, the meeting in the United States was with officials, right? They were meeting with officials who pledged, their support. You can take a look at leaked documents by the London Telegraph, I believe.
Right.
They have an article on it. And then they also went to a State Department conference, right? Some sort of compact called the Alliance for Youth Movements, right? Where you had various other representatives of the sort of corporate Wall Street, elite establishment in the United States. They went to that, but the training, of course, was done by Canvas, a group called Canvas. What Canvas is sort of it's the Otpor movement is what they did to sort of reinvent themselves so they could train future pseudo-revolutionary types. And that's where the training comes in. And the Otpor, or Canvas as they were known, they were trained, they were funded, they were given funds and wherewithal by the State Department, the CIA, the whole litany of U.S. support.
And that was before the Arab Spring started.
Yeah, that was before the Arab Spring started. And also I should mention that the primary institution which was involved in both of these is something called the NED, or the National Endowment for Democracy. So this is the institution which is ostensibly a so-called NGO, supposedly non-governmental organization, when in reality it's funded and created by the U.S. government, of course, and it's actually a replacement front for the Central Intelligence Agency for the purposes of giving it a sort of facelift, because there were these revelations during the 70s and 80s about all these sordid CIA activities. So what they had to do was create a replacement front so that the CIA could do what it once did covertly. You can now do it overtly, and that's the NED, and that was at the center of both of these wave of destabilization, the color revolution and the Arab Spring. There's the NED, and they provided the funding. Also, I should mention, to the various groups during the Middle East uprisings.
Now, you were also saying before that part of this plan was for like Wall Street to cause food prices to go up over there, to cause more malcontent, more discontent. Yeah,
that was part of the. Now I can't say it for certain. There's some sort of coordination, but certainly I know there could be an argument that there may have been some coordination because there's some books that talk about how the CIA was founded by Wall Street bankers, Wall Street lawyers. I think it's called The Old Boys. What the book is called. So yeah, there's a case, but the context of the destabilization was massive, precipitous, extreme food price inflation. Wall Street had gone into the world food market, and they had sort of bid up the price of food dramatically to alarming levels, according to the World Bank head at the time, Robert Zoellick. So that was the context. So based on that, you're going to have even more people, which will create a groundswell of discontent, which then the cadre, right, the April 6th and the Kafaya movements can come in to sort of mobilize these masses of people out into the streets based on their training, their wherewithal, and their funding.
Very interesting. Now Mubarak was no slouch. This guy had his own intelligence agency. He was one of the best in the world. Now, did he see this coming, or just totally snuck by him?
I doubt he saw it coming. I mean, I don't think there's much evidence to suggest that he saw it coming. But at the same time, I don't think people should put too much emphasis on the strains of the regime, because in fact, I think at the time, in other words, the protesters who were out in the streets, they were able to destabilize the government, but they weren't able to actually shake the foundations of the regime. And in fact, once Mubarak stepped down, they did not even take the reins of power. First, the transition went from a military junta, right, the so-called SCAT, the Supreme Command of the Armed Forces, under Mohammed Hussein Tantawi and then Sami Hafez-Anan, the two sort of pro-U.S. generals, which urged him to step down. And then after that, of course, is the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan. So they were more so were done to sort of lend this whole thing credence and to destabilize. That's more or less their purpose. So in other words, they can mobilize on the street, but they don't have the power. They didn't have the wherewithal, the power to actually push Mubarak out. I don't think that's what they were even capable of. Because if you could mobilize, thousands of people in the streets, that's one thing. But it's another thing to actually break the power of the regime, and they were unable to do it. It took calls from the generals, pro-U.S. Generals, and Obama himself, who was, of course, the leader of the world's preeminent power.
Not to get too far off the subject, but where is Mubarak today? Where has he been given sanctuary?
Mubarak, I don't think he's too popular today. Last I checked, he was in a hospital somewhere. He's in bad health.
Mm-hmm. Do you know which country has him?
I'm not too sure. I haven't really checked into that.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting to figure that out. Now, so you always hear now, especially on this Hannity on Fox News, the big predictor that the Muslim Brotherhood would come in and take over the vacuum in Egypt. And he predicted it, that the Muslim Brotherhood was going to come in there. And the Muslim Brotherhood is this extreme, radical, practically jihadist, organization, right? What can you tell us about the Muslim Brotherhood?
I could tell you that all these assertions about the Muslim Brotherhood are specious. They're complete nonsense. The Muslim Brotherhood, from its inception, in fact, has been a willing, eager partner of the West and the United States. In fact, if you go back to his founding, right, under Hassan al-Banna, right, and then you have Saeed Ramadan, its whole entire international political profile was fostered by the CIA, MI6, and the West, because what they wanted to do was have a counterpoise, of course, against the Arab nationalism of somebody like Gamal Abdel Nasser. So, on the one hand, and the other hand, you have, something which is political Islam, which is, of course, antithetical to communism, because communism is inherently atheistic. So if you have political Islam, they're incompatible. So from that period onward, they have always been a consistent partner of the West. Really not consistent, but they are certainly amenable to working with the United States, and that's indeed what the Obama administration proceeded to do. So I don't have any belief. I don't think there's any credibility to this idea that the Muslim Brotherhood is sort of anti-Western or neuralgically anti-Western institution. They have been willing partners. They're pragmatic. They're subversive. They're willing to enact Western neoliberalism. They're all for it. So that's the Ikhwan. That's the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, isn't the Muslim Brotherhood too the party in power in Turkey, which is one of our number one NATO allies?
Yes, that's exactly right. And the AKP, the Justice and Development Party, is the party in power right now, and in Turkey under Erdogan, who's becoming increasingly authoritarian and autocratic. He wants to become dictator or president. He wants to turn Egypt to a presidential system, which afford him even more powers. Their roots, the AKP roots, are in the Muslim Brotherhood. And in fact, once they actually gave shelter to the Muslim Brotherhood once they were ousted from Egypt. Once they were ousted, they were given shelter. I think I got the time wrong. First Qatar, which is another major sponsor, and then in Turkey. So yeah, they're huge partners, and their roots are in the Muslim Brotherhood. And recent developments have shown that they are also partners of the Al-Nusra Front, the Al-Nusra Brigade in Syria there, which is a branch of Al-Qaeda. We've had reports from people like Seymour Hersh in the New Yorker. Of course, we had something that was alluded to by Vice President Joe Biden about Turkey's support for these Al-Nusra Islamists. And, I think there's even more with that on the Syrian front. But, yeah, that's the Muslim Brotherhood.
Muslim Brotherhood was created CIA and MI6.
No, it wasn't created necessarily. I don't have enough evidence to say that, but I can say that its political profile, its international sort of where its power base, its support was fostered. I can definitely say it was fostered and bolstered by the CIA for the purposes, as I mentioned, of attacking pan-Arab nationalism, and also having something against the threat of communism.
Right. So now, the other day when Barack Obama goes to visit a mosque, and all the Fox News and all the right-wing media comes out and says, and this mosque has connections to the Muslim Brotherhood. What do you think? Is that something that people should be concerned about?
I don't really think so. No, I don't. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that. I mean,
now then,
what harm can?
Why wouldn't when you have someone like Sean Hannity over and over and over saying, okay, that Obama let Egypt fall into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood? Why wouldn't? Go ahead.
Yeah, he wants to say this because, of course, he's opposed to Obama. He wants to he wants to nitpick. He wants to be captious about every little thing he can use to discredit him. When in fact, the Bush administration and plenty other Republican administrations or right-wing administrations have been willing and eager partners of the Brotherhood as well. So this is the status quo.
Absolutely.
So Obama upholding the status quo. There's nothing spectacular about this. It's just Hannity using it for the purposes of trying to bolster his own position and try to attack Obama. That's all it is. And there's nothing new. He always does this.
And Obama can't come back. Obama can't come back and says, "Well, of course the Muslim Brotherhood came in because we put them in." Right?
No, of course not.
He can't say, "Hey, man, that was my plan all along," because otherwise, then the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. That'll be self-defeating. So
right,
that's not in the cards.
Right. So it's amazing. So that the right, this strange faction of the right that just makes up things as they go along, they know what's going on. They're not stupid either. They know who the Muslim Brotherhood is. They know that we put them in charge. But they also know that Obama can't come out and say, well, of course we put them in charge. They're our ally. But Obama won't even say that they're our ally in that they run Turkey and that are our ally. So,
no.
Yeah, it's like they're all creating, and they're all part of this play, this show, of how supposedly the Muslim Brotherhood is our enemy and a danger to the United States.
Yeah, that's just politics, though. Especially today, as politics deteriorates, right? It's more acrimonious. It's more deception going on. But that's just the nature of it. It'll get worse and worse as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's getting any better. By the way, do you see any hope? Let's say if someone like Bernie Sanders were to get in, that perhaps things would change.
Perhaps, but the thing with Sanders, though, is that he, when he first came into power, came in as a congressman in, 1990, I believe,
yeah.
He actually said he opposed foreign intervention, right? But eventually, I think, for certain interventions, right, some of these liberal, I guess we call it imperialist interventions, right, of the humanitarian R2P variety, he's supported. So I would be too hesitant. I mean, I think it would be probably maybe something tempered or moderated, but I don't really see something fundamental going on with him, because maybe then, the powers that be will not tolerate something of that nature. We'll see.
Yeah, I gotcha. But at least it's a step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah.
And what I'm also looking
especially on the domestic economic side, yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, right. He's brought this into the debate. And obviously, these people are all lined up against him. The media's lined up against him. These big Wall Street guys are lined up against him. So he must be on the right side, the correct side. If he has all the right enemies, right? He must be a good guy. Okay, we're going to take a little commercial break here. Now, I forgot to tell you about this off the air, but it's a 6-minute long commercial break. Now I'm going to put you on mute, so we just got to sit tight in 6 minutes, and I'll come right back to you. We're here with Christopher Brennan, author of Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. And he's also an author of this article here you could find here on globalresearch.com called Fall of the Arab Spring, it's the same name, Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction, which kind of outlines everything we're discussing today. We'll be right back with more of Christopher Brennan right after these messages. And now, a word from our sponsors. Pacific West Bamboo, your premier source for sustainable building material. They provide construction-grade and craft-grade bamboo material for all your indoor, outdoor, and gardening needs. Contact them for event planning and display building as well. 503-839-8126. Or you go to their new website, pacificwestbamboo.com. Or you can contact them on Facebook at Pacific West Bamboo. That's 503-839-8126. Amanda from Pacific West Bamboo was our first sponsor. She's been so good to us, so please support her in return. I want to make everybody aware of our new members section at www.oppermanreport.com. You can go there and sign up for a monthly, quarterly, or yearly subscription. You can even purchase episodes one by one. You get full access to brand new original content, new guests, new uncensored interviews, my own investigations and reports, and we're going to be adding sections with documents, images, police reports, either provided by myself or by my guests, or for my own investigations, my own reports. So you can go to oppermanreport.com and you can sign up there tonight. You can start listening tonight. Strawman. I want to mention Strawman. Strawman is a band out of Toronto, Canada. They're good friends of the Opperman Report. They're a trio of guys who share the same mindset most of us here do, and they put that energy into their words and music. So check them out at strawmanmusic.com and drop them a line to let them know that you heard them here on the Opperman Report. We'll be doing an interview with Sean Duffy soon. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, by visiting my PI website, emailrevealer.com. We also offer a computer and cell phone forensics. We can recover deleted text messages to uncover infidelity. We offer asset searches, locates, email tracing, background reports, and we can even trace your spouse's email address back to internet dating websites to catch them cheating online. You can reach us at 800-572-9762, or you can email me at emailrevealer@aol.com. New World Mexican Women. Everyone loves the New World Mexican Women, and their line of fine, handcrafted, authentic Mexican jewelry of stone mosaic and abalone stone inlay. In their first book, titled New World Mexican Women, available on lulu.com, they teach you how to make this jewelry, and they have a collection of love letters to their men from their hometown that have immigrated to the United States to find work. They have also published a new book entitled Azuquina to the Rodeo. It's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider, and she runs away with him without telling her family. You can find the New World Mexican Women by Googling New World Mexican Women. And you can ask them about their deals on wholesaling their fine jewelry and all of the other projects that they have going on. If you'd like to have your business or website advertised here and promoted all over the world on dozens of stations every day, give us a call at 800-572-9762 or email oppermanreport@gmail.com. And now back to our show. Well, not so soon. First, we're going to talk about MichiganMushrooms.net. They offer the highest quality chaga chunks available anywhere, picked fresh from healthy live trees in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, sun-dried and quickly shipped to you. They're very proud of their long-standing reputation as trusted farmers and collectors of wild, gourmet, and medicinal mushrooms. Customer service and offering high-quality products is very important to them. And they have a strict grading system that begins in the woods, and they would rather pass up a chunk that looks bad instead of passing it off to you, the customer. Additionally, they are recognized by the state of Michigan as mushroom experts. They are certified by the Department of Agriculture to sell 20 different species of mushrooms, and proof of this certification is available upon request. That is MichiganMushrooms.net or on Facebook, Michigan Mushrooms LLC. Got a brand new sponsor, The Rodeo of Doom by Miguel La Sala. The year is 2384, and Henry Fields is a down-on-his-luck adjunct professor in the architecture department at Andreas Tangen University in Los Angeles. But he has one thing going for him that others don't. He has enough of the coveted EP14 to live to be 200, if he wants to. Not that hard. When he saves a woman for certain death with a few drops of the EP14, a corrupt government agency tries to blackmail him into selling off his supply. Just when it seems like it might be a good idea, all hell breaks loose. The Rodeo of Doom was written by Miguel La Sala and edited by Margaret A. Harrell, the author of Keep This Quiet, memoir series. Now, she was also the copy-edited Hunter S. Thompson's breakthrough book, Hell's Angels. According to Harrell, the Rodeo of Doom will grip you and pull you into the wild ride of a different reality. This is a consciously fast-paced journey into the future. Author Miguel La Sala reveals his craft by intricately weaving in fine details for his reader and keeps you anxiously anticipating what will happen next. Do not wait to read this book. There will surely be more to come from this author. The Rodeo of Doom is available on Amazon.com, and there's a link to the Rodeo of Doom in the Opperman Report bookstore. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and we're here with Christopher Brennan. He's the author of Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. And you can find an article on globalresearch.com that pretty much outlines, gives an outline of the book. Now, the book won't be available to December 12th?
No, it has been, it was released December 12th, 2015, so the late last year.
Gotcha. Okay, now, after Mubarak was relieved of his power there, did he then, did the new regime, the Muslim Brotherhood in charge of Egypt, then get involved in Libya and Syria and all these other conflicts over there?
Yeah, I think that may have been part of the strategy, that you have this historic partner, let's say, who will then come to power after all these autocrats are supplanted and overturned. So, of course, they were heavily involved, and still are, in fact, in the destabilization of Syria, and also, in particular, we could also look at Libya, too. Libya as well. We have Yusuf Qaradawi, who is the one of their foremost clerics, come out and call for any able-bodied Libyan to assassinate Gaddafi.
Now, what do you think, first of all, back to Egypt, what was our long-term plan on removing Mubarak? What was our goal?
Long-term, I think it's part of the broader picture, which is that of undermining nation-states in general. Promoting what has been referred to as Lebanonization, or the sort of Balkanization policy, so we can shore up our own primacy, our own hegemony, and also to maintain the status quo of bolstering Israel's security as well. And once you, as we can see today, I mean, if you compare the Arab world pre-Arab Spring and post-Arab Spring, you can see very palpably that it has qualitatively deteriorated. And in fact, there was a recent study by the UAE Forum, or think tank, which said it places the pecuniary, the money cost at around almost $1 trillion. And we're not talking the lives lost in various civil wars and, the human suffering and so forth. And also, importantly, is, of course, the context of multipolarity, right? We have multiple centers of world power already with the rise of China. You have the resurgence of Russia. And in fact, President Xi of China has just made a recent worldwide tour of the Middle East. So this is manifesting as we speak.
Interesting. And now this sort of fits in with General Wesley Clark when he gave that speech, and he discussed
exactly.
Right, we've been destabilizing the Mideast since Clinton, the first Clinton, since the Clinton days, all throughout, and the same policy has been in effect through Clinton, through Bush Jr., through
right.
Obama. So it's the same policy no matter who's in power, it would appear.
Right.
Now,
right. The only thing that differs is the tactic that I outlined in the beginning of the book.
Right. So what do you see coming next? Because now it seems like we made it. It would appear that the plan would be to invade Iran, but now we've made that deal with them. So what do you think is going on with that?
No, I don't think any conflict with Iran is in the offing in the foreseeable future, because of this recent rapprochement with Iran, and also because because we're becoming more and more dependent upon them in the fight in Iraq, right? The government in Iraq is the Dawa party, the Shia Islamist party, which is heavily tied to the regime in Tehran. So I don't think anything's next in the offing with Iran, but I think the status quo, I think the organization of Middle East will continue. And hopefully, I would look forward to the development in Syria that hopefully some sort of peaceful settlement can occur there. But we'll see.
Yeah, what do you think will happen there with Russia coming in and Putin coming in? And by the way, did you see the other day where Putin invited Henry Kissinger to his home?
No, I didn't. But I do recall that they have sort of a friendly, this cordial relationship. And in fact, I think it was Kissinger who's considers himself, sort of realpolitik. He has this lens of realpolitik. He was one of the critics of this Ukrainian policy of the Obama administration, which was another coup fought by the Obama administration by similar techniques. I didn't notice that one, but I do know that he has this cordial relationship with Putin.
Yeah, I think he's right there right now today, staying at his home. And Putin came out and said, yeah, we were longtime friends. We were very, very close friends and allies, me and Kissinger. So very interesting because, you see a lot of people here, I guess, in the alternative media and the alternative movement who give Putin this kind of admiration and respect as this great leader. So who's somehow an ally of us here, dissidents here in the United States. What do you make of that?
Well, I think I think what that stems from is the sort of need for heroes.
Right.
The fact that the situation is so reprehensible, it's so sordid that people want to like there's some sort of force for good in the world. In other words, there's some hope that something out there which represents good. In other words, sometimes it's kind of Manichaeanism, right? We have good against people. Yeah. But in reality, politics is not really black and white in that nature. So his politics are driven by the interests of Russia, first and foremost. And he's a Russian nationalist. Right? He promotes the national interests of Russia. It's very, very straightforward. There's no ambiguity about that. So I think people should, look forward or commend Putin when he's able to check these sort of brazen imperialist policies of the United States, but at the same time, be aware, don't complacently accept, any other policies and view him as infallible. But he is a statesman, as what he is. He's a statesman. He's involved in politics, just as everybody else. And there's good and there's bad. So that's my outlook on that.
Very interesting that they can present these pictures of him, these images of him with his shirt off on a horse, and these militia types just look at that and they just admire it so much, man. They're looking for a strong man, like Donald Trump. So now back to Egypt, though. Now, is there anything I've left out that I haven't asked you that you want to share with us?
How much time do we have?
Got about 15 minutes.
15? I would just like to mention the other component, which is Libya.
Okay.
Now, because I use two case studies. I don't just use Egypt. I also use Libya as a case study in my book, Fall of the Arab Spring. So, Libya, you have, again, it's the same liberal imperialism, right? The same sort of shift, same fundamental shift in tactics. When you juxtapose the Bush administration to the Obama administration, where it's, it's bellicose, right? It's in your face, might makes right. Here, what you're doing is you're enacting humanitarian imperialism, the doctrine of R2P, so-called responsibility to protect, which abrogates the UN Charter, which says that there can be no interference in the internal affairs of sovereign states. Now, R2P says that in the event where there's some sort of humanitarian catastrophe or, acts of genocide or forthcoming acts of genocide, right? The responsibility is not a matter of the question of sovereignty, it is a matter of the responsibility to protect. So what was done in Libya actually, rather, is I would say that the entire hysteria. First of all, we should mention that the United Nations Security Council, with the acquiescence of Russia and China, enacted a resolution which permitted bombing, or so-called, using the euphemism of a no-fly zone, to destroy, to oust Muammar Gaddafi. There was a long-time enemy of the West in the United States, going back to his original coup against King Idris. So what they had to do under the framework of this R2P humanitarian imperialism was gin up hysteria, right? Humanitarian catastrophe, right? Calamitous humanitarian catastrophe is forthcoming, right? In Benghazi, right? Because the government of Gaddafi is based in Tripoli. So on the other end of Libya, you have Benghazi. So they use statements, right? Various statements he made. But the fact of the matter is, this entire assertion is specious. It's erroneous. There never was any humanitarian catastrophe whatsoever. Now, when you look at what actually happened, you will see that from beginning to end, the uprising in Libya was never peaceful. The so-called peaceful protesters were actually armed from the beginning, and it was basically a tribal conflict fostered by these sort of opposition types who have been these tribal militias who continue to rule the country today. So that's the situation in Libya, and based on that, once you had the authorization of the UN, again, which is the contrast to the Bush administration, which used unilateralism, right? It sort of eschewed this the UN itself, right? Who went around the UN. The Obama administration actually gained legitimacy for its intervention via the UN. So you use that to go ahead and proceed to destroy the country, and I outline that in my book in detail. And very strikingly, is mentioned that not only did they fail in their stated goals of preventing a humanitarian catastrophe, but they actually precipitated a humanitarian catastrophe, especially in cities which were pro-Green Revolution or pro-Gaddafi. These cities were utterly annihilated, right? You look at Bani Walid, you look at Sirte, cities like this, they were completely destroyed. Tripoli as well. And the fact of the matter is, there could be no looming humanitarian catastrophe by Gaddafi cities if they're pro-Gaddafi. It doesn't make sense. So essentially what you had was you had NATO and the U.S., mainly the U.S., because the U.S. has the wherewithal and the power to do this. You had them given carte blanche to carry out regime change. That's all it was. And you can read that all in my book.
Yeah, and after then there was actually a ethnic cleansing in Libya.
Yes.
It was a horrific.
Yes, exactly.
So
and that's a testament to the fact that it was tribally based.
Right.
And what you had these Arabs, these anti-black Arabs, which ethnically cleansed various areas. In fact, some of the brigades, particularly, we should look at the Misrata Brigade, were known as merchants. Some of them stylized themselves as the brigade for cleansing blacks, or the brigade for killing blacks or Negroes. This is the sort of animus that was blithely dismissed. You can even read reports in mainstream media, which I quote in the book. So yeah, there's ethnic cleansing and political cleansing as well, because many of the supporters of Gaddafi were rounded up, summarily executed. And that was documented, of course, by Human Rights Watch and various other organizations right after the fact.
Yeah, that whole thing in Libya was horrific. It really, and especially since Gaddafi seemed to be cooperative. After 9/11, he seemed to be cooperative with the West and with the U.S., various U.S.
Yeah, in particular, yes, that's correct. In particular, the turning point was, of course, 2003, where you have shock and awe. So from that period onward, he became a pragmatist, he became a survivalist. Because if you have another, let's say, autocrat in the Middle Eastern world topple ruthlessly, right, and as was the case in Iraq, you could be next.
Right.
So he was well aware of that. So he became a survivalist, cooperative, and of course he was betrayed. Right, the West was duplicitous. And there's a story. I don't know. I can't confirm or verify, but that he actually made contributions to Nicolas Sarkozy, president of France, a former president of France, who actually was at the forefront of smashing Libya under the auspices of the NATO intervention. He actually donated money to his campaign. So for that, that got him nowhere.
Now, have you read the recent released Hillary Clinton emails where she's discussing the pre-Libyan overthrow?
Yes, I have. And also, I also take a look, and I quote in my book the various revelations from the Washington Times, which impugn Hillary Clinton's, let's say, tendentious arguments in favor of intervention. And really, the Defense Intelligence was questioned the truth and validity of all the assertions being made. I mean, some of them they said were just completely ridiculous, which is true.
Yeah. It would be nice. We're in an election year right now. It would be nice if there was an opponent that could bring all this out, and especially tonight in a debate. But I guess that's asking too much. Now, what is your theory on what went on in Benghazi?
In Benghazi? I don't know. I think that, there have been various arguments made, but I haven't investigated it. But I would say that in any case, we do know that the context was a completely destabilized and destroyed, balkanized Libya. So for me, that's the key. That's most striking to me because after all the blithe pronouncements of freedom, democracy, and so on and so forth, what you have is a country that was completely destroyed. Right, it became a failed state essentially. So in other words, you have all these slogans and platitudes, but the end result, at the end of the day, was a failed state. And in fact, it wasn't just a Western diplomat who was killed. There are virtually no statesmen or no diplomats who are safe in the country. Nobody is safe. It's a failed state. You had the very prime minister of the country was kidnapped. The prime minister of the country was kidnapped. Imagine if President Obama was kidnapped by armed militias. What does that say about the state of the country? And then you also have the Jordanian ambassador who was kidnapped as well. And there's another one too. But it's just a failed state. And and for me that's the really tragic part about it. Is came in and destroyed this country and was so completely indifferent and insouciant to the outcome, and that's what happened.
Very interesting that such a failed state, like you said, but Senator John McCain can make several visits over there with his own militia buddies and be able to give him, protect him, give him an entry and exit with no problems whatsoever anytime he's been there.
Yeah, he's a frequent perpetrator. He's a frequent traveler. I mean, the guy that I don't mean to digress into Ukraine, but he met with some very dubious characters, let's say, in Ukraine there, of the Nazi coloration. I'm thinking of Svoboda and Pravy sector, right sector there in Ukraine. Yeah, so he's very frequent traveler. And in fact, he's actually chairman of the Republican Party branch of the NED, National Endowment for Democracy. So I would argue that he's perhaps very intimately linked with a lot of these developments going on there.
Very, very interesting. Okay, that's a revelation to me. Okay, that's very good information. I recently had a guest on the show who was the father of the number 3 guy who was involved in this bin Laden raid, and then later on died in that helicopter attack in Afghanistan. And he was, yeah, and there was so many suspicious and unusual. You got to listen to the show. It goes on and on forever. But one of the things that everyone who's asking for investigations into not only the compound attack, but also to the helicopter attack crash, is they all say, forget it. You go to McCain, it's a dead end. He just makes one phone call and then he comes back and he says, no, we looked into it, everything's cool. So he's a dead end as far as people looking for justice and help. Christopher Brennan, we're down to the last couple of seconds. What do you want to leave us with, and how can people get a hold of you? You got a website? Where can you get your book?
I want to leave you with always search for the truth and always be a realist in your world outlook. And you can find my book on Amazon.com. Type in Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. You'll see my name, Christopher Brennan. You can access it there. And also I have various articles on the Internet. I also use the pseudonym Chris Machiavel. That's Macavel. And my book, again, is Fall of the Arab Spring, From Revolution to Destruction. If you want the entire story of what has precipitated the entire chaos of the Middle East today, to understand and be an expert on what has gone on today, what has led to the breakdown of society and balkanization, you can pick up that book and you will become well-versed and an expert in this area.
Christopher, thank you so much for coming on. Anything comes up new, give me a call. We'll put you right back on the air.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, we met Chris through Polly Hughes, who was our liaison to the Reverend Ed Pinckney over there. And you know what? That's what I wanted to talk to him about. It was very interesting. It was a whole point I wanted to make during the show, but we lost him now. Is when you look at the destabilization of the Middle East and you look at what's going on in Michigan, the similarities, the destruction of what's going on in Michigan is just like what we're doing over in the Middle East, but without the dropping bombs, So very interesting stuff. So what we'll do is we'll have Chris back in the near future. So good night, guys, and thank you very much.